Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. It's not actually morning anymore. It was up until about 5 minutes ago. But here on the East Coast of the United States, the Gulf Coast of Florida, we've now gone from morning into daytime, afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Nice to see you here. And an interesting little show today. I was going through my YouTube channel and beyond, and I started thinking about the stuff that I used to teach way back when, and started thinking about the stuff I used to talk about, the things I used to say, the stuff we used to preach, and I thought it'd be interesting to go back and look at the beginning and see what we used to talk about, see how much change has come, see how much development has come, or see if things are pretty much the same. And I've gone through, and I even went back before the YouTube days. This is back into Blog Talk Radio, and I found I think the very first broadcast that we ever made that wasn't Christian, and by we I mean me. There was a girl there I was dating at the time, but I wanted to go back and take a look at this and do a little then and now thing. So we're going to go back all the way to January of 2012. So we're going back almost 7 years. And we're going to hear what I was talking about then. And this was actually this thing we're going to listen to in Blog Talk was actually the first non-Christian, I think, broadcast that I ever made, sitting on a couch in Bel Air Bluffs, Florida, with a phone over Blog Talk Radio. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't very, well done or produced, but I think it's going to prove to be very interesting to see the concepts that have always been here and the concepts that are still here going forward. So very, very interesting stuff. Let's take a deep breath with the language. It's a family show. It's Sunday. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. All right, so let's take a look at this stuff. Remember December 10th, the What to Do When You're Dead seminar, the Extravaganza of Enlightenment here in Clearwater, Florida. Heidi Vandenberg, Jenny Moonstone, and Dan from Overwatch Channel. Maybe more, but that's what we got right now. This Wednesday, I'm on the Power Hour radio program, top 10 radio program in the country. And on Thursday, I'll be with George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM for 2 hours. So let's take a look at this. And this is actually kind of funny. Again, we're going all the way back to the Blog Talk Radio days. And look what we were called back then, New Covenant Kabbalah. And here it was, NCK Radio. How funny is that? I'm going to get this thing started, and I'm going to put it on mute. Oh.
His preaching, he would always say, or at least a lot of the time, he'd say, the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of God is like. You remember that? And those people that are listening on the radio will have heard that too. And whenever Jesus started saying, it's time to preach the gospel of the kingdom, he said he was called to preach the gospel of the kingdom. So, of course, I'm wondering, what's the gospel of the kingdom?
So see, this is pretty good stuff even way back then. Of course, we are using the J word. We're still saying Jesus because we hadn't really come into the totality of that understanding. But this is when I really started looking and made the difference between the gospel about Jesus, where he was born, who he was, what he did. And that's what Christianity teaches, is a gospel about Jesus. And I started thinking, well, what is the gospel of Jesus? What did he himself actually say? And this is the time when I looked into the New Testament. This is the beginning of a revelation that says, oh, when Christ said the kingdom of heaven is like, the kingdom of heaven is like, the kingdom of heaven is like, when the Christ actually gave his own words, this is the gospel of the Christ, not the gospel about the Christ. And if you're in Christianity, or if you've never heard me before, the chances are good that you've been following a gospel about the Christ. You know what a lot of people think about him. You know what a lot of people teach about him. You know what a lot of people believe about him, but you know precious little about what he himself actually said. There's a huge difference between the gospel about the Christ and the gospel of the Christ. And if you want to know the gospel of the Christ, I was right 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and I'm right today. Go to the words that he himself spoke. Now, the ones you'll find in the New Testament, they're not all really his words. There's a lot of dung in there, but there's also diamond to be found. Go to the words he spoke. When Christ opened his mouth and began to talk, look at those words. And that was the premise that I was going from here. And it was amazing to have discovered this. It was a brand new door opening up. No more gospel about the Christ, gospel of the Christ. And here's the key. The gospel about the Christ is religion. The gospel of the Christ is spirituality. The gospel about the Christ is indoctrination. The gospel of the Christ is enlightenment. So let's see what else I had to say 6 years ago.
That would be Jesus' message. And as I looked everywhere where he was preaching the gospel of the kingdom, started studying it online, started studying it in books, and I found that not most of the time, not a lot of the time, but every single time that Yeshua, Jesus Christ, said, the kingdom of heaven is like, the kingdom of God is like, or this is the gospel of the kingdom, every time what he preached after that came from the book known as the Zohar, which is the founding document of Kabbalah.
Now, at that time, I really believed that. And I believed that every word that Christ said after the kingdom of heaven is like was Kabbalah. And, you know, I'm a bit of an extremist, so I heard him several times teaching stuff out of the Kabbalah. So I thought, oh, Christ was teaching New Covenant Kabbalah, thus the catchy name, NCK, New Covenant Kabbalah. Now, of course, that's become new cosmic knowledge. Why? Because I realized that the Christ was teaching Kabbalah. There's no doubt about it. And someone's knocking at the door, but that's just the way it's going to have to be. Hold on one second. Jiminy Christmas. Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, gosh, thanks. Well, it's just us, right? It was Amazon, and let's see what Amazon brought me. What the heck, huh? What did Amazon bring me? What did Amazon bring me? Oh, Amazon brought me something that's going to help on the road. They brought me one of these handy dandy little things to put your phone on so you can take better videos with your phone when you're on the road, because I'm planning to be on the road a lot more. It adjusts and all that cool stuff. So anyway, sorry I didn't know what was going on with the door knocking, so I had to be sure that it wasn't any kind of a crisis. And I guess when you're on the air live as much as we are, you're going to get some people knocking on the door at times. But I did believe that everything he talked about was Kabbalah, and a lot of what he did talk a lot about Kabbalah, but he also talked a lot about a lot of other things. So it's not just new covenant Kabbalah, it's new cosmic knowledge. So you can see where I came in with the Kabbalah part, because he did talk a lot about Kabbalah, but it took me a couple months to figure out, oops, it's not just new covenant Kabbalah he's talking about. He talked about Kabbalah and a lot of other things. So it's really not just new covenant Kabbalah, it's new cosmic knowledge. I think it's interesting how the NCK was able to stay there. So I like to think it was divinely inspired and planned all along. See what else this guy had to say.
What do you think about that?
Well, this is that girl, and she.
What does that make you think when Jesus says this is how the Kabbalist? Jesus was a Kabbalist. What does that mean? That's what he was teaching. He was teaching Kabbalah. What are you talking about? Let me give you some examples. When Jesus said that it's more blessed to give than to receive, straight out of the Zohar.
That's true. It is more blessed to give than to receive. That is a concept from Kabbalah, from the Zohar.
Straight Kabbalah. When Jesus said that you need to become as a little child in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, straight out of the Zohar, straight Kabbalah.
That's true. When the Christ said, "Become as a little child in order to enter the kingdom of heaven," that is a Kabbalistic Zohar concept.
Even the concept of being born again, out of the Zohar, straight Kabbalah.
It is Kabbalistic, but of course it's more than just Kabbalistic, because the Kabbalah had the understanding of reincarnation and progression through lifetimes, but so did the thoughts in the East, thoughts of and many other religious and spiritual doctrines and practices. So that, I was very focused here, Kabbalah, but I didn't realize that it's also other places. So that's how we went from New Covenant Kabbalah into New Cosmic Knowledge. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here.
So what is the Zohar? The Zohar is a collection of writings thousands of years old, much older than the New Testament.
I believe so.
Jesus was using and presenting and teaching out of this book, and just about every word that Jesus taught in the New Testament came out of the Zohar.
Well, that's not true, but you can see the formation of ideas, that here's a book that predates the New Testament, and the Christ was teaching out of it. So the ideas, you could see the ideas spawning in my mind that there's many books that predate the New Testament that Christ himself brought messages out of. These are the ways and the truths and the lives, the best of all the ways, the best of all the truths that cobble into a doctrine that leads us unto life. So yes, the Zohar was part of it. Yes, Kabbalah was part of it, but it's covenant, it's Kabbalah, Zohar plus. It's not just Kabbalah. That was my mistake 6-7 years ago. And my perspectives have expanded from that time. But it is fascinating to think that the Kabbalah, and a lot of people have a dim view of the Kabbalah, and there's a lot of things about the Kabbalah that are dim, but the Christ recognized some great teachings within Kabbalah and brought them to us, just as he recognized some great teachings in many of the other faiths and beliefs of pre-New Testament times and brought them to us as well.
Absolutely, and the thing to remember about exactly, and the thing about, you hit a key there, Tiffany, because when Jesus came to earth, grew up and started preaching, where was he?
Of course, I do not believe any longer. I've found from the scriptures that there was no baby Jesus. He did not grow up. The Christ appeared as a full-grown man, as John the Apostle told us. So there was no boy Jesus, baby Jesus, young Jesus. None of that was true. Let's see if I can skip through and see if we got anything else good in here. We're going to just try to go right past that whole thing.
Geographically, physically, where was he? Jesus fulfilled all the requirements of Judaism. So Jesus, the religion, or the prophet. Don't think that I've come to destroy Judaism. Don't think that I've come to do away with Judaism.
Well, anyway, that's kind of goes down a rabbit hole really quick. That's a guy that's still locked within the Christian realms, a guy that's still locked within the biblical realms. But it shows you the coming of age, the actual idea that, you know what? I was starting to get it. I was starting to see, I was starting to realize, if you can realize the major things that were going on there, realizing that, hey, man, it's not just, am I still sharing? Hey, man, no, it's not just the Bible. Hey, man, it's not just the New Testament. Hey, man, there's more to it out there than what we've been told. And guess what? He was even teaching some Kabbalah. So that was the beginning. That was the opening of the door. And it's interesting to see these things grow and develop and transpire. So let's take a look at the chat room and see what we've got going there. I remember when Jeff wasn't sure about astrology. Yeah, Jeff remembers when he wasn't sure about astrology. Jordan, we understand enthusiasm. And if it was midnight, it'd be one thing, but noon, I don't know. Sandra D'Angelo's little girl might be looking at this. What time do the GTA dancers go on stage? Oh my. What significance does Sunday have without Christian God? What does it matter? It doesn't matter, Jordan. You're absolutely right. There's no significance of Sunday at all. People talking about what they had. I didn't abandon you this morning. It just didn't work out this morning, but it may work out this evening. I tell everyone I'm doing Bible study on Sunday mornings, they can think what they want. There you go. Sunday Morning Coming Down is a great Johnny Cash song. Let's see, which is fine. I got a strike of confusion. I wasn't awake this morning, so I didn't miss the show. Jehovah's Witnesses, good old neighbor Jeff. Yahweh's Witnesses, Johnny Cash. Yeah, more Johnny Cash. Amazon does deliver on Sunday. Yes, indeed. I imagine many women had some Johnny Cash anyway. Jordan's all in the gutter today. All in the gutter. Johnny Cash was the only music my dad ever played. Absolutely. Good stuff. You sound like 19 on those old recordings. Well, I was a lot younger then. It was 6 years ago. Among wolves, is there any more questions? No more questions. So it's interesting to look back and see how things started to develop, because I mean, that really was me coming out of. Did Mr. Rogers used to answer the door on his show? I can't remember. But we did have to answer the door just in case it was another neighbor yelling. I thought I was being quiet, but you can't ever tell. Sunday's seventh Monday. I'm glad people can change their opinions later in life, because some can't. And we're always about learning more, developing more, growing more. And you think about it, if you study constantly and consistently like I do, how can you not get to the place where you understand more than you used to understand? If I was still believing and sharing and teaching the same exact things that I was 6, 7 years ago, I think that would be indicative of the fact that I didn't make that much progress in 6 or 7 years. So to me, it's good to know that we are growing. It's good to know that we are developing. It's good to know, and I guess when I say we, in this case, I mean me. It's good to know that I am learning, growing, developing. I'm not locked in, and I will continue to grow, I think, and continue to develop and continue to progress. And you have to be a truth seeker, as Susan says. We have to be truth seekers. We have to seek truth. And the problem with jingles and stuff is they have to be original. You can't do any copyrighted music or language anymore. The more viewpoints you get, the clearer the picture. I agree. So we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to progress. We're going to continue to look at new stuff. And there's nothing really wrong with the Kabbalah. There's there's some silliness in the Kabbalah, but the Kabbalah does also have some good stuff as well. So I'm going to go back. I mean, I'm going back and I'm looking at some of these old videos, and I'm looking at some of these old, blog talk radio things. And we're going to probably come back and start taking a look of them, because I mean, these go all the way back. I'm looking at them again. They go all the way back to, holy mackerel, they go all the way back to This one we were just looking at was January 8th, 2012. That's 6 years. And it looks like there's, how many New Covenant Kabbalahs are there? How long did it take me? It looks like New Covenant Kabbalah went on for a couple of months. And then I realized, wait a second, there's a little more to it than just New Covenant Kabbalah. So I'm not going to, wait a minute, I got Jesus Talk Kabbalah here. That was a show that I did for a while. So it's interesting and funny to look back at this stuff. And I think things really changed in about December of 2012. I began to see that, oh, wait a minute, there's more, because it looks like we go from New Covenant Kabbalah to New Cosmic Knowledge about December of 2012. So that's really about 6 years ago. This one today, February of 2012, we're talking almost 8 years ago. It's interesting how things can stay around as long as they can stay around. So, wow, Madonna was into Kabbalah a lot. I think she still is. Whew, good stuff, man. Interesting stuff. And we're looking through it. We're checking it out. We're going back. We want to make sure we dot all the I's. We want to make sure that we cross all the T's. And we want to make sure that we recognize where we've come from so we know where we're going. And we want to make sure we haven't missed anything along the way. Because I think especially when we get into the YouTubes have only been around, I think the earliest YouTube was about, well, let's see, when was the earliest YouTube that I did? The earliest YouTube that I did was, and this isn't going to be easy to find because there's 1,000 videos, but the earliest YouTube that I did was, come on, work with me. Lots of pages of this stuff, man. I don't know if you've been through the whole channel, but I mean, there's years and years of teaching on here. There's years and years of doctrine on here. I think there's 34 or 5 pages of videos. So there's 1,000 videos. And I'm about halfway through them right now. I'm going to get to the very first one and talk to you and just see what it says. We might even take a look at it just for fun. I think we will, because I finished with that Kabbalah one a lot sooner than I thought I would. Let's go to the very first one. The very first YouTube video that I think I ever put out. There was a couple I put out on my son's channel, but this is, for all intents and purposes, the first one. And it's interesting what I was talking about. Wow, there's a lot of these things. Not going to understand what you guys mean when I say, oh, just go look at the videos. You're like, dude, there's 34 pages of videos. And here's the first one, March 28th, 2014. So 15, 16, that's all. This is over 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, the first video that I did. And this isn't a pretty picture, but we'll take a quick look at it. The first picture, the first video that I did, we'll take a quick look at it. We'll mute it so we can get past the commercial. But this will be interesting. This is the first video I ever did. And we're going to see what we were into back then. Let's skip the ad.
A brand new revelation, at least I want to share with you.
Brand new revelation.
Brand new revelation that I was given in hopes that it might communicate to you and make some change and some reality in your life. Here's the thing, folks. This paradigm of good versus evil has been sold to us for about 2,000 years. And I go through this in my book, Apostle Paul Antichrist, how it started. And there's basically 2 reasons why we've been sold this good versus evil paradigm. Number 1, to keep us fearful. Number 2, to keep us fighting. Because if we can be kept fearful and fighting, we'll never have peace. We will have continued strife and battle. And that's what they want. I mean, look at it from a socio-political standpoint.
Now, see, that's pretty good stuff. That's 4 years ago. And I'm not sure about that hairdo. And that guy looks like he's never met a Twinkie he didn't like. But it's still pretty good doctrine, right? The good versus evil paradigm. And they are trying to keep us fearful, and they are trying to keep us fighting. I mean, you see it even within our genre here. People want to fight about certain aspects of certain messages. And somebody told me somebody gave me the psychological name for it, that we fight with people that we have micro disagreements with, more so than we fight with people that we have huge disagreements with. And it is a truth. And I love that seafoam green leather couch. That was awesome. I finally had to get rid of it. But the fact of the matter is that this good versus evil paradigm is put in place to keep us fighting each other and to keep us in a place of fear and to keep us in a place of being combative with one another instead of being in tune with one another. Let's see if he says anything else interesting.
Ever since the Roman Empire, we've been fighting, we've been battling, we've been at each other's throats because there's an us and there's a them. There's a good, there's a bad, there's a good, there's an evil. And anybody coming against the great American way, I mean, how many people are doing that now? We're in 5, 6, 7 conflicts and threatening more. That's the whole good versus evil paradigm on a socio-political scale. We're about the spiritual and the religious here at this broadcast. I don't deal too much with the socio-political except with how it affects us spiritually. And my job is to suggest to you spiritual truths and suggestions and things that will cause you to ask yourselves some questions that can hopefully change your life. So on a religious spectrum, you've got good versus evil. And the fact that we think there's evil out there causes us to be fearful, and it causes us to fight. And those are two things that prevent our ascension in our spiritual development. And here's the dirty, rotten secret, folks. There are no demons. There are no devils. There's only unbalanced energy.
Now, that is something I really believed, and I'm still not sure that guy wasn't right, but the reality is that 99.9% of you will never deal with anything called a demon. 99.9% of you will never deal with anything called a devil. 99.9% of you will never deal with anything other than unbalanced energy, and most of it of your making. Everything that you deal with pretty much is unbalanced energy that you unbalance. It's gone out into the world and it's coming back like a salmon to the spawning grounds, which is you. And it has to come back by divine law. And it doesn't want to be balanced because it's gained some sentience and it knows what scares you. So it's trying to scare you. You think it's a demon. You think it's a devil. It's just the energy you've put out there that's unbalanced that needs to be rebalanced. However, I have come to realize since then that the rat bastard Yahweh Jehovah did either create or enlist from some other places some beings under his realm. So there are some fallen angels, bad guys out there in a spiritual realm, but there's very, very, very few of them. And most of you don't have to do with them. Most of you will never deal with them. So this is an example of change. This is an example of growth. This is an example of development. I still think there's very, very little out there that's not just unbalanced entity, that aren't just unbalanced entities, but there are definitely some things that were created by the rat bastard or recruited by the rat bastard that are indeed entities that work for him, work with him. But there are very, very few of them, and most of our battles are with unbalanced energies. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit of look back at the beginning, both on Blog Talk Radio and the beginning on YouTube. So what you're seeing is we're talking about the same things, but we've had some growth and we've had some development along the way. And 6 years from now, we'll have more growth and more development along the way as well. So it's interesting stuff. It's powerful stuff. And I want to take just one more look at this.
There is no evil. There's only unbalanced energy. How do I know?
Almost.
It's 2014. We've grown up enough. We understand enough scientifically to know that everything is energy. Me, you, everything.
This was all true.
Are unbalanced energy. If they are entities, they're entities composed of unbalanced energy.
Now that might be right. It could be tulpas.
It wasn't until 2 years ago that I realized, wow, obviously I wasn't doing anything because they stayed there. They didn't go away.
Oh, let's just talk about casting
Because
out
they're
demons.
not demons, they're not devils, they're unbalanced energy.
And that's true. That's true. Trying to get things out of people, it's mainly unbalanced energy, not demons and devils. Look at him pointing that finger.
You can't fight it, because if you continue to fight it, it will continue to be manifesting in your life. Because if you resist it, it persists.
Now that's profound. What you resist continues to persist. And this is why this is good as gospel to most of you, because most of you are at the place where you're still, and you were good, you didn't have to watch that, where you're still resisting this unbalanced energy. You still think it's a demon. And when it is your unbalanced energy that comes back to you, if you continue to resist it, which is what it wants, it will continue to persist. You have to take it in and you have to recalibrate it to being balanced energy. Good, 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 good stuff. Unbalanced energy, the one experiencing it or outside of them. It's outside of you because you've put it out. It's swirled around. It's gathered more unbalanced energy to it, but it has to come back to you to get balanced. And it doesn't want to be, because it's become sentient. So it's fighting with you. And if you resist it and fight it back, it just continues to grow. That's why you have to put the hue on it. That's why you have to accept it back in and balance it. Wow. This is some interesting stuff. And just a little bit to get you thinking, just a little bit to get you swirling, just a little bit to get you pondering, just a little bit to get you realizing that growth, development is the order of the day. And that's what we're trying to do. It's all self-made. We're gonna have to have a little talk about this. All right. All of the energy that you project into the universe is energy. And energy does not dissipate. So if I put out energies of fear into the universe, it goes out and it's fear energy. And according to the law of attraction, fear energy draws to it more fear energy. So if this thing swirls around out there for a month, a year, a decade, it's going to draw more like energy to it. So when it comes back to you, and it has to come back to you, I've taught about this before, it's like salmon, they have to come back. And when it comes back to you, it's not just the fear that you originally put out, it's the fear you originally put out, plus more fear that has been drawn to it. So it comes back to you. And remember, you thought it was fearful at the beginning. So it comes back to you. It knows how to push your buttons. And now it's been out there for a while. It's developed some sentience. It's developed some independence. It's developed into some sort of a tulpa or a thought form. It knows it has to come back to you, but it doesn't want to be recalibrated into balanced energy. It's like Captain Kirk on the Star Trek, where he got split into the good captain, the bad captain from the transporter. Remember the bad captain? I want to live. I want to live. That's what it's doing. But it comes to you because it has to come to you. And if you fight it, it gets to fight back. It resists. It gets to persist, and it goes off, and it comes back again, and it's even worse. And I get all the time asked by people to help them with demons, and I have to try to help them with their own unbalanced energy. I can do it, but I can't do it all because it's your energy. You got to do it. So sooner or later, we got to grow up to be big boys and big girls and understand that 99.99999% of everything that comes to you that you think is a demon, a devil, an ET, a poltergeist, whatever, it's not. It's your energy that you've unbalanced, that's gone out, and it's coming back, and it knows how to push your buttons, and it's trying to scare you. You're not fighting demons. You're fighting your own unbalanced energy. You're not fighting devils. You're fighting your own unbalanced energy. You're not fighting entities. You're fighting your own unbalanced energy almost all the time. Now, if you do the right things 3 or 4 times and it doesn't help, then maybe you have run into an entity. Rare, but it does happen. So then that's when you call somebody like me to help you out. But generally speaking, And by generally speaking, I mean 99.99% of the time, ET, demon, devil, interdimensional, boogeyman, cootie, gremlin, whatever you want to call it, if it comes to you and it's harassing you, do that hue sound, 432 megahertz, do it. It causes the thing to either be rebalanced or run. And here's the thing, if they run, they're not going to get any stronger by you resisting, and they'll still have to come back, and sooner or later they're going to succumb. They're going to be balanced. Or you tell them, right now in the name of Jeffrey Allen Darty, right now in the name of April Corvin Ahmed, right now in the name of Nancy Presna, come back into balance. You speak forth, if you got that about you, if you're that advanced, speak to it, tell it to come back into balance. Tell it to get over here and come back into balance, and you'll take care of it. So great question, Sandra. Great question. Great question. So that's how you do it. That's how it works. And that's how you get to the place of where you are free. And who the Christ sets free is free indeed. That's worth stopping in on a Sunday afternoon. That's some good stuff for you right there. Something old, something new, and then and now putting it together and finding some balance. I'll be on Coast to Coast again Thursday night, Crooked, for 2 hours with George Norrie. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence and the Bible. We'll be doing an update on the Mandela effect. We'll be doing an update on reptilians. It's going to be some really good stuff. It's going to be a great show. I encourage you to be there. And until then, I encourage you to continue to ask questions, continue to question answers, guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, be your own guru. Stay fearless, my friends. And I salute you for being here, seeking knowledge to unindoctrinate yourself.